I do disagree with you a little bit about the ISIS thing, though.
If Tinkerbell could come in and tell me that, I got this whole thing wrapped up, but it's going to be limited, and this is how we're going to not bomb civilians, and we've got them all lined up. Of course, Tinkerbell would say this in a very squeaky voice, right? And she'd be flying around, buzzing around.
But I think
then maybe I would.
But I
sign
think
on.
the problem is that this is actually a unique situation. This actually does pose.
Well, you know how unique it was when.
No, but this is the problem: is that because so much of this has been overhyped and there's been so much BS, you still have to recognize when there is an actual situation that actually does pose a different dynamic. And
Okay.
this does.
No, I don't doubt
Both
that
from
this doesn't pose a different dynamic.
Both from a humanitarian point of view.
Let's put aside the humanitarian point of view for a moment.
I don't think you can.
All right. Well, let's do that for a moment. What is the threat to U.S. national security here?
The threat to U.S. national security and to regional security is that if this group
let's get to regional security.
It's the same thing. If this group actually continues to seriously take over and become...
Take over what?
More of Iraq, more of Syria. They're operating in Lebanon. Their aim is to go into Saudi Arabia. If this actually metastasizes into something, which is a actual possibility, it's not just fear-mongering.
Well, tell me how this goes.
I'm trying to explain to you.
Well, I know, but
if that actually happens,
I understand. That's a huge. Yes.
No, it's not huge because it's happening.
Well, no.
Right? Like, it's one thing if you said a year ago there's this group with these outsized ambitions and they're incredibly brutal and they might do X, Y, or Z. That's one thing to say, okay, whatever. They have been doing.
So where do they go now? You're saying that what
they're
falls
gonna
first?
Keep pushing
Syria
into Iraq. They're going
or
to keep pushing through Iraq. They already have a stabilized place in Syria, and they're starting to operate in Lebanon.
Okay, and so the idea is that they will take over Lebanon, or they will take over Iraq?
The idea is that they will take. The goal is obviously to take over more of Iraq. The goal is to operate in Lebanon and to operate in more of Syria.
They seem to have been at least now contained by Iraqi
and how do you
Kurdish...
think that they have been contained?
Right.
Obviously, partially through our airstrikes.
Right.
So again, you have to acknowledge that before junking the
Well,
whole
that's
strategy.
different than saying we're going to go on a 36-month program to actually not just contain, but to go in and destroy them and annihilate them.
And that is a completely fair point. And also the other major point here is that we're still not addressing the fact that not this group, because this group terrifies the Saudis, but that the Saudis, who are our main fulcrum there, fund this stuff. And I agree with that 100%. But I think, again, to just say, like, oh, this is just more BS, this is another overhyped threat,
no,
forget it.
I still am not clear on, okay, so if we have contained them at this point.
I don't think we've reversed some of their massive momentum is different than saying we've contained them.
Okay, so...
I mean, if that's the situation where it should just be like, okay, so... They're going to just operate indefinitely over this large swath of territory, keep inflicting massive damage on people and destabilizing this place, and occasionally we'll hit them with airstrikes. That to me doesn't seem...
So
like,
how does it how does it work that we are able to annihilate them?
I think words like annihilate them are stupid, but I think the
that's
notion...
What this is,
I don't buy that. But
okay,
I think
but this is my point, is that like... I don't see a plan here.
The plan is to assemble a group of nations,
right.
A coalition of the willing.
You're laughing. You're laughing as you say this because it's laughable. There is no plan here for us to do anything other than essentially
you do have to
bomb.
fund things like the Kurdish fighters. You have to do that.
I'm willing to fund Kurdish fighters.
If it means in function, limited airstrikes and funding people like the Kurds to actually fight these guys off, I just don't understand how we could actually object to that. If that's what it means in practice. I understand
I'm not
really concerned
what
about
I just read,
broader overreach.
What I just read was we got to figure out a way to get in there and bomb Syria.
To bomb their havens in Syria.
Yeah, bomb Syria.
Yeah.
I mean, I just
And obviously that's much more contested.
yes. Well, that's
Yeah,
what we
and that's
seem
what
to
you
be
seem
talking
to be
about. I
getting.
mean, that's why the president's giving a speech tomorrow night. It's not to say we're going to arm the Kurdish rebels.
Well,
We're not
he's
gonna-
gonna talk about who we're gonna arm, and he's gonna talk about who we're gonna strike.
Yeah, no,
and
I
I
don't
agree
buy
with
it.
you that Syria is problematic to strike, but I just don't. I think you yourself acknowledge that the reason that they have been slowed in their progress is because of what we've already done. So
Fine.
okay, so that's fine. So a limited option is fine.
Yeah, a very, very
But a
limited
limited option
will.
is fine
And
because
then-
this is an
and
actual
then, and
unique
then
situation
he's got to go
and
and
unique
get the
threat.
war powers from Congress. So in other
Well,
words,
setting that aside, just
Well,
as you set
no,
aside,
no.
just as you set aside the humanitarian
no,
crisis.
no. Because look, here's the problem: is that this whole thing is, in my estimation, a recipe for mission creep. And if you're cutting off all the checks and balances, and you're not calling it limited, but rather you're saying we're starting something that is open-ended, that's going to be at least 36 months, so that there's no timeline for accountability, there's no buy-in from Congress, which makes it much harder to do these type of things. I think there's a real problem, and so I'm not on board with that. I don't care
So you're
what
not
we've
on board
achieved.
with the limited option that has worked so far, according to your own understanding.
The limited option that has so far worked is because part of it is that there are there are built-in stops to it, which is you got to go under the War Powers Act. He's got to go to Congress.
No, but it's
within-
actually worked in terms of ISIS and the region, right? Like you said, it slowed their progress.
Yeah.
So that you support.
I need more evidence that there is actually a national security threat. I mean, at one point, yes, the idea of them having the dam at Mosul, very
a big
problematic.
deal.
That's one
Them
explosion,
having oil
and they don't
fields
have it.
and them having
Well,
massive control of different territories, and them having a significant amount
I think
of,
them having oil fields is much harder to control, much easier to control the ability for them to make real money off it. That's my feeling on it. I mean, it's just there's not enough of a case. I'm sorry, there's not enough of a case.